everybody, here we are again. I'm Colwin. This is the next part of our pen making on our bringing the Axminster Skill Centre to your workshop. If you remember last, where were we choosing? That was on Thursday, wasn't it? We were making 2 pens, and we were going to start nice and simply to begin with, and I'll bring you in closer to show you the pens. But we made 2 wooden pens, an Americana pen today, but with difficult materials. I can see Craig behind the camera. He's our cameraman today, so Finn and Charlie, they're working. Craig's working, but he's working in my workshop today. So if you have any questions for both of us, don't forget, he'll be there ready to ask, so just fire away when you're ready. Are we all alright, Craig? You had a nervous look at...
No, we just lost connection for a split second, but we're back and ready to go. Don't worry, we're all good, we're all good.
Stick with us, guys. If for whatever reason we lose connection, because the connection has improved so much nowadays, but than it did at the beginning of our session back in March. If you do lose, just hang fire, it should come back again. Well, I maybe should say that at the end of the video, but there. Hold tight. Now, what I was doing here, I've just done a bit of preparation before you've turned up. If you remember last time, so I've got a single barrel pen in the Vienna, and we've got a double barrel pen in the Americana. That involves making 3 pieces. Okay, so single barrel, 1, we'll bring you in close again in a minute, and double barrel, the 2 parts here. To trim the ends, because I haven't got a barrel trimmer the right size in my workshop, and I'll explain barrel trimmers next week. We'll talk about next week in a moment. I'm using the sanding discs to trim the ends instead. I put a piece of timber here and just used a square to create a 90-degree platform, okay, against my sanding disc, and trim the ends that way. So it just helps with those odd sized barrels that you haven't got a barrel trimmer to fit. So that's how I've done that. I've left that set up purposely so you can see what's going on. And I've shown you the sanding platform numerous times now. It's part of the Evolution tool rest range, and all I've done here is then put the carving plate in there, a little bit of timber on the top. You got yourself a sanding plate. So it's a really useful bit of kit. And of course, once you get the stem, then you've got access to all the tool rests and things like that. I've added one of the stop collars on here as well, and the stop collar means that I can just put it back in the rest and it finds center each time, so I can set it to wherever I want. So that's the sanding table. We're still getting quite a few questions on that, so I thought I'd mention that one again. And then the sanding disc, same thing here. This is on my Axminster Woodturning chuck, the SK114, with the C-jaws, then on a faceplate ring, and I've made the Velcro, the MDF disc with my Velcro discs on there. Okay, so this is all sort of things we've gone over quite a lot in the last few weeks. So let's get set up again. I'm going to assume that no one saw what we done on Thursday, so I'll go through the process of setting this up again. So we don't need the chuck. I can take that chuck off. We will need a mandrel. And pretty much like last week, what I'm going to do is start with the easy pen. And that will be the Vienna, the single barrel one. So Craig, if you'd like to come in nice and close for everybody now. Lovely. I'll put a little bit of light. So a little bit of light on the situation. So there's our Vienna. Now this is one of the dyed maple blanks that we use there. Instead of that this time, we're going to start with acrylic. Okay, acrylic, between acrylic and polyester, acrylic is probably quite a lot harder. And if you're beginning in these types of plastics, then go with acrylic just to begin with. Okay, I've already glued in the tube, I've already sanded the end off square, so we're all ready to go with that one. The difference between that and the polyester, you'll see in a minute, the polyester is a harder material to turn. It's like a frozen toffee almost when you start turning it. So a little bit more care is going to be needed, a little bit more skew work. And it's like I can associate it with plastics really, because it melts the same way, so we mustn't get it too hot. So we're going to sand with water. We're going to use a polishing compound to get a nice glaze on it. So we're going to treat it differently than we would timber. Now, in terms of our mandrel, there's our push mandrel. So that headstock, and then we've got our rotating tailstock centre. That can go in there. And then our bushings. So if you remember last week, the bushings replicate the diameter of the pen kit. So it all meets up nicely. So we're going to put that one on first. And then sandwich our drilled out piece of acrylic with its tube fitted in between the two bushings. And remember, the reason that I said I prefer this type of pen mandrel to the others is because this one we're pushing directly onto the piece of acrylic, rather than a lot of the others push just on the end of this bar, so you can get flex there and you get more vibration. But by doing this, you get a lot less vibration and more pressure as well. My job here is a very simple one. All it is I've got to turn down the ends or the edges of this piece of acrylic to the same diameter as the bushings. That will then match up the pieces in the pen kit. So like I say, once you've done the prep, you're pretty much there. So let's do that. I'm going to show you. You'll see very clearly the difference between the two materials. So Craig, let's get right in this time.
Even closer. There we go.
I'll move that out of your way.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that all right?
Yeah, okay.
Get that right off. All right.
Yeah, perfect.
See, perfect.
All right. So we had one quick question before you get started.
Yeah.
The pens that you did last time.
Yeah.
Did you get Ben to look them over? Ben the pen.
Is that not from Ben?
No, it's not from Ben,
It's
actually.
not from Ben.
No, it's not from Ben.
Not from Ron Caddy, is it?
I didn't catch the name. It flashed past.
right.
It might be from Ron.
Well, no, I'm too embarrassed to let Ben the pen have a look at them. When we get back to doing more videos back at HQ, then I'm sure Ben the pen Beddoes will be on it.
Oh, most definitely.
Actually, one of the questions that we had from last week is, you're turning easy pens, why can't you turn a fountain pen that has the nib that recesses into the top? So, we're going to do a pen turning part 3 next, not this Thursday, next week, next Thursday. Alright, it's all getting complicated, but yes, we're going to do another part 3 next week. Don't forget, this week on Thursday we're doing fishing lures and floats. And airbrushing and all that sort of thing when it comes to fishing lures, epoxy resin, everything. But now let's have a look at this one. So nice and quick. I know I said it melts if you get it too hot, but for the turning we need to get a little bit of speed there. So I would say 2003, 2005 maybe. You get a much better finish that way. You must wear some sort of protection whenever you're turning, but when you're turning acrylics, it spits at you. It's quite aggressive, so you have to be extra careful. Make sure you're completely covered. Right up quick with our speed. There we are, that's running at 2,400. Is that too bright, Craig?
That's okay.
Okay. So all I'm going to do first is we're going to use a little 1/4 inch bowl gouge. Alright, just a tiny little bowl gouge. I think roughing gouges can be too aggressive on these types of materials and they'll start tearing them to pieces. So we're just going to make a couple of roughing cuts. We're starting to get down to a solid round now. Now I'm just going to stop the lathe and show you what we're getting there. You can see what happens with this type of material. Not so much with the polyester in a minute. But there we are. We got some lovely markings in this. You might hear a raking occasionally, and again with the polyester in it you'll get more of that. But now I'm getting closer. I'm just going to turn the gouge in and use the bottom of the gouge as a skew. We are going to the skew in a minute, but I just want to do a couple of finishing cuts with my gouge first. There we are, that'll do. So now we're going to go for skew chisel. There we are. I don't know whether you can see the difference there, but immediately the finish is 10 times better. We get that beautiful finish with the skew.
So Bill's just asked, did you just touch the bushings?
No, that was just too big a cut. But you occasionally will touch the bushings. View the bushings as a wearable piece, a wearable part. They are going to be sanded over and everything like that. They're going to be. It's a softer material than the skew, so if anything gets damaged, it's the bushing. But to be honest, you're not going to damage it that much.
Question from David. When using the skew to do kind of a V-cut, it seems to dig and spiral off. Okay,
yeah, so what that is your tool rest is either too low or your handle too high. So do one of the others, drop your handle down or raise the tool rest, and also make sure that your handle's in line with your cut. If you do anything like this, then that's going to happen all the time. So get that handle back in line. David, if you go to our website, Axminster website, look up Colwin Way signature skews, you'll see a video there and I explain and demonstrate that. There we go.
And just one, the 1/4 inch bowl gouge that you used,
yes,
did you have that on centre height, above centre height?
Just below. And I haven't moved, because this is such a small piece, I haven't moved the tool rest, so the tool rest is fractionally below, and that's allowed me then to use firstly the bowl gouge as a roughing gouge by having the handle high and using the tip, and then using it as a skew by dropping the handle down and turning the gouge in, so I can use this bottom edge just like a skew chisel to run across my finishing cuts. However, you're never going to get as good a finish as the skew on something like this. You've seen immediately that that's brought a real shine up to that surface. A little bit of a ridge there I need to take off, but it's brought up a really nice finish. There we are. When you're doing finishing cuts on any of the acrylics or the polyesters, it needs to be a silent cut. If you hear a raking, that's actually going to be a pitted surface that you leave. So it's quite important that. Now I'm just going to turn the speed down for a little bit, take the tool rest away, turn some extraction on. We're going to dry sand with a 400, then a 600 grit abrasive, but then we're going to go to a water and then finish with a polishing compound. So we won't assemble anything yet until we finish the second pen, but we are going to sand and polish. So 400 and 600, and yes, I'm going to preempt the questions. Yes, you can use Abranet. You can use the Abranet perforated. You can use the Abranet pads. All those things. They're all made with this sort of thing in mind. It's perfect for this. 400, 600 first though. Dry. Just to do a little bit of the coarse sanding. Get rid of my turning lines.
What speed is the lathe on now where you're sanding?
At the moment I'm at 1500 revs, and that's just to stop the heat build up really. When we get the water going it's not going to matter because it's going to be self-cooling. So you can see that I'm just sanding right over the edges onto the bushing. Grit now. so that's the dry sanding. So now we're going to move on to our wet sanding pads. Okay, wet sanding pads, these are the Abernet pads, and they look like that. Okay, these are, we've numbered these ourselves, so we're starting at the coarsest. There we are, number 1, and working our way up. We need to keep them in water, or keep them saturated whilst you're using them. If you use them dry, they don't last very long at all. I'm not going to have the speed too fast, otherwise I get a face full of water.
So, there's a chap, Terry, he's never turned a pen before.
Yeah.
Does this mean that mandrel can turn any pen kit?
I haven't found one yet that it can't. As long as you've got the right bushing set, then yes. I don't know of, but I've been in the industry, we've all been in the industry a fair time when you put it together, pen kits being that different, or different enough that a bushing can't pick up the slack. Because this one, even though my the shaft of the mandrel is 6 point something, the actual tube in this pen is 8mm. So the bushing is taking up the difference between that and the mandrel.
So I've had a message from Chris S.
Yeah.
About the Axminster AT255 SB bandsaw. So our lovely trade favourite. Now a very, very nice bandsaw. Low vibration, powerful, very simple, which is good. I like the solid and simple type machinery. Blade selection, well, if you're looking to cut curves, you go with the narrow blades, 1/4 inch. If you're looking to cut straight, you go with 1/2 inch and above in width. If you're looking to cut deep stuff, just lower the tooth count, 3 or 4 TPI. But if you're looking for a good all-rounder blade, I think 3/8 of an inch, 6 TPI will give you a good straight cut, but also allow you to cut reasonably tight curves. Certainly enough for average 8 and 10 inch size bowls. If you want to cut, even tighter, just drop it down to a 1/4 inch width, and you can do some very tight curves down to about even 2 inch in diameter if you get all the setup right. So hope that helped, Chris. Sorry, Colwin, taking your spot.
I like it. Gives me a chance to do stuff.
Well, I did time my question carefully.
There we are. So we're on the final sanding pad now. It's about 12,000 grit. So it's a different level again from timber. 12,000 grit on timber wouldn't really do much apart from clog up. But this is all being lubricated. It's all water. It's soaking wet, so it's not actually clogging. We need to go even higher again, because what we're going to do with acrylic and polyester, we're not putting a polish on as a surface coat. We're sanding it to the point where we're actually making the surface of that material shine, so it can never wear away. The polish always stays. So what we're going to do now,
just a quickie,
yeah,
from Bill again. Have you written the grits on the pads? How do you know which pad is which grit? I think they're coloured, are they coloured?
They're colour coded.
Yeah.
I've written the number. No, I haven't written the grit sizes on, only because I've used them so often. It's stuck in my memory. But there's if you get to the packet, if you buy any, inside the packet there's a colour coded grit size, so you'll see yourself.
Like a little chart.
Little chart on there, yeah. So there we are. That's what we're using. So this is an acrylic polish. Basically, it's an abrasive. It's an abrasive compound or paste. And when I say abrasive, probably less abrasive than toothpaste. It's quite fine. So you're going to carry on with that. Let it do its magic. Right. Craig, can we get even closer?
Okay.
Because that's lovely, just on that surface. Alright, so we've done the polishing with the acrylic burnishing cream. Now when you buff it off, you watch this, you get that beautiful finish. There. However, if you still saw a scratch on there, go back to the start. Do it again, because you'll only see it all the time. So go back to the start, sand again, and you'll be pleased. We'll probably leave out the dry sanding, but certainly the wet sanding. All right. So what a nice finish that is. We'll leave that there, I think. We'll get right in on the action as we turn the next one. So what we'll do now, boys and girls, is we'll take that one off, and we will do the next pen, remembering the material is different. So we're going from acrylic to polyester.
Beautiful.
A real depth in that, so really nice. I shouldn't be saying it while Craig's here, but Christmas will be here soon.
Oh, I'm done.
Christmas will be here soon. Craig's nickname at work is the Grinch, for obvious reasons. So Christmas will be here soon, and what lovely Christmas presents and things like that these pens always make. There's almost a disbelief when you give these, is you never made that, did you? I can hear it now. So they're ever so easy to make, these pens. We are, because of that question, if you remember I said at the beginning, we're going to try the difficult ones as well. Ooh. We're going to try the difficult ones as well. So I'm going to do a fountain pen next week, and as well as making a difficult kit, we may as well go the whole hog, and we'll also do use a difficult material, and we'll use a coffee bean pen blank, because I promised that and I haven't delivered today. So we're going to do a coffee bean pen blank, one of the most difficult apparently to make, on a difficult kit as well. Okay, so set myself up for a fall. We might as well go the whole hog. So this is your 2-part Americana, remember? Same thing here. We're going to turn down to the bushings. So short tool rest. Now I want you to listen to the difference in sound, the raking almost that you get initially. You have to be careful with this. Don't try and take big cuts. If you take big cuts, it'll explode, and that blank will be gone. So same tools. I'm going to start with the bowl gouge, and I'm going to start nice and quick. Same speed, about 2-3, 2-4. So none of those curls and ribbons. You can hear the raking.
Question from Peter. Is copper beech good for turning?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in terms of its colour, the timber colour, you don't really get much of a difference in its look. But beech in general is a lovely material, used a lot in kitchen ware, so where bowls, pestle and mortars, chopping boards, all that sort of thing. Lovely close grain, got a lovely little fleck to it. So this is, remember what material this is, your polyester resin. If you've ever seen imitation ivory, horn, tortoiseshell, that's all polyester resin. Coffee beans are cast in polyester. It's all the trickier ones to turn. I need a passing tool next, because if you remember on this particular kit, we've got that lovely ring in the middle. So I'm going to part down to this diameter, so that this collar will fit over the top. So nice and gentle, it will not allow you to take a big cut. So only thing you've got to be a little bit careful of you need to be able to see what you're doing, and I'm making this the same diameter as the centre bushing, and that collar has to fit over, almost there, that one. There we are, that's sitting over there nicely now. So now we can turn this section down to that collar. Skew chisel, of course. Take your time. We're going to get rid of that raking noise. The raking noise at the beginning is there because you're travelling over those little voids, those little pits that you made with the gouge. That will disappear. You can scrape both polyester and acrylic if you want to. It scrapes quite well. Always go negative rake though. Don't use a regular scraper, otherwise it'll explode. And the tool in hand is a great negative rake scraper. Turn it flat on its side. And there's your scrape. So don't worry, if you can't get on with the skew in the normal way, scrape with it. So I'm taking my time. You can't bully this like you can timber. Now we're getting somewhere. A little bit more off the top. I'm just feeling for any lips between the bushings and the polyester. So I want a nice join when it comes to the actual bits of the kit.
Got a question for you, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Not exactly pen related, but what's the difference? Question from Len. What's the difference between the standard SK114 and the one with the reverse lock?
One with, I think all of the 114s have a reverse lock. The reverse lock is on the inside. Just very briefly a second. Is that Len? So let me make this out then. So these two holes here, those hold grub screws. If you want to do a lot of reverse turning, the way this can work for you, if you take those two out, just spot, you know, if you're using a grub screw, a locking grub screw, you have a little V point that grub screw locates into. The idea is that you use a drill and make a V point in the register here for them to contact onto, if you're doing a lot. If you're just lightly reversing, then just bind those two grub screws onto the register. There is another option, so that's the inline. This option here, if you have a T38, so a 33 with 3.5 mil thread, the other option is this. So you have an extended nose, so just bringing the chuck away from the headstock a little bit, and then you've got the regular grub screws that again can lock on to the outside of the register. Just be aware though, they have to be very secure. If they slip at all, if the chuck slips, then you can start damaging your thread. So which style you go for is entirely up to you. But that's the reverse lock really. Then those are the two options. Where before we had those style of chucks, this is my old Axminster one, we had that or nothing. So it's giving you a couple of options. Hope that's answered that one. So just finishing the bottom, and then we'll go to the same style of sanding. I'm not putting much pressure on. I want to feel the skew and its contact area, so I'm holding the chisel quite loosely. I'm making the bevel rub. Bevel rubbing with a skew is absolutely key, because if the bevel's not rubbing, nothing's stopping the cutting edge from sinking. That's nice. A little bit proud there, which I want. We'll stop the lathe, show you what we've got. There we are. Now, I've done a bit of research. We had a question a few weeks ago about resin and what do you do with the waste, and it's the same as this. The binmen take it, but it does go to landfill, I'm afraid. Once it's come to this form, it is non-recyclable. That's the same with your resin. We use epoxy. We sell epoxy, eco-epoxy. In liquid form, it's a plant-based epoxy resin. But again, once set, it doesn't break down. So I just wanted to clear that one up in case anybody's thinking, oh well, my bins man doesn't take it. How come yours does? They take it, but it's landfill, unfortunately. The same with this. This will go down my dust extractor, but at the moment, a friend of mine is using all the muck for a compost loo. So we're going to start with our dry abrasive. Don't stand in one place for too long. Let your fingers be a thermometer. If they start to hurt, then you're going to start melting the plastic. So don't stay in that one place. Keep it moving. So we're up to 600 grit now. Go back to our water and fine abrasive. It's got a real sort of glitter in this pen kit here. So let's go right through the grade. So starting at our number 1 again. Lay speed down a bit, just to stop us getting sprayed really. you remember, we're going on to the burnishing or polishing compound, the acrylic polishing compound, paste, and a little bit more than that.
So we've got a question from Keith just popped up. Have you ever tried turning antler?
Yes. Yes. Antler is a very dusty material. It's not dissimilar than bone. Bone and antler are very close. Horn is obviously a completely different material because horn is matted hair. Horn is matted hair, but antler and bone are very similar, sort of calcium type materials. Yeah, I used to turn a lot. So when I was an apprentice, 50% of the day or week was turning timber, or my year, whatever, was turning timber, and the rest was turning these alternate materials. And so we turned all sorts of, dare I say it back then, ivory, but that came from piano keys, and we had turned a lot of woolly mammoth ivory that was dredged from the North Sea. That was quite an interesting material. And then we were starting to look at the alternative materials because a lot of our work was restoration as well. So like the polyester, the acrylics and things like that, it was all there back then, but just not used much. Look at the glitter in that. But yes, now if you want to get some antler or bone and things like that and turn, you can, because it's sold most of the time in pet stores. Mole Haven, Mole Valley, those sorts of things, your hardware store, because it's for dog chews. So you can get it and cut it up and use it in exactly the same way we used to. It's an interesting material. Just make a lot of thimbles out of it, lace bobbins, pattern prickers, those sorts of things. Same, it's just like we did Whitby Jet and jade, all of those sorts of things. Quite interesting. There we are, lovely. There's suspended glitter in this polyester, so I want to say it's an attractive look, but it's an acquired taste. If you like that sort of thing. So let's just take very carefully our bushings out. I would advise you get a little bit box for all of these bushings and number the bushings in the box so you know which pen kit they go to. Okay. So I'm just going to rearrange the lathe now. We'll start putting these things together.
A quick question while you do that about you mentioned negative rake scrapers.
Yes.
Is it something that you can show sometime, not necessarily now? And can you explain the whole negative rake thing and the benefits over the kind of regular non-negative?
I can. I want to show. Yeah, just getting every ounce of water off that lathe before we go off, and then don't forget inside the tool post, on the banjo, on the saddle, don't want anything rusting over. Negative rake, I want to say it's a fairly recent thing, as in the past sort of 15 years, but I guess it's not. I guess it's been used a lot in metalworking and things like that. Basically a negative rake cutter. If I can show you, have I got any? Haven't got any there. Basically a negative rake is, if I took a screw and a regular, so it's not a good example because I created a secondary bevel on that one. So there we are, there's a round nose scraper. Has a single bevel. If I was then to put a secondary bevel on the top, secondary bevel on the top here, to make it more skew-like, that's what I would call a negative rake. You get it on carbide tip tools an awful lot, especially the ones designed for polyester, acrylics and all those sorts of things. It calms the cut down a little bit, well, a lot actually. An aggressive scraper like that would explode the polyester out. This is a very calm way of cutting it. You'll find that a lot on the Jason Breach box making scrapers for cutting, especially for end grain, that sort of thing. It calms everything down. If you've ever had a grab from a scraper, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Put a secondary bevel on it, create a negative rake, it will stop that from happening. And I know the next question is going to be what angles. I don't know is the answer. I have no idea. It's I suspect on mine especially you'll find every tool slightly different. But think of skews. You use a skew as a scraper, it's a lovely soft nice scrape because we've got that negative rake. There we are. So right, a little bit of wood. There's me a bit of wood. On here, might have a little adjustment there, Craig. We're going to put the assembly press up again. There we are. We'll start with the one piece, the easy one, the Vienna. And the Vienna we use our piece of acrylic. So we had that lovely red crimson acrylic. Now apologies to the person that put all these little pieces in bags. Someone's job. Don't lose any of it. So we've got a little tiny spring there, ever so easy to lose that one. We've got the mechanism itself, and we've got the cap. I'm going to do it in a particular order, and if we're teaching this, it's quite tricky to keep everybody focused and not to run too far ahead. So what we're going to do is, where's my nib? We're going to put our spring there. Going to pop that in the nib. We're then going to pop that over the refill and screw it on. Make sure that that's nice and tight. Make sure the mechanism is working. And then we're going to press on the top. This is what keeps everything together. So we're going to press that on. Now you've got to fiddle with this to make sure it stays true. Let's turn them around the other way, because what can happen, it can bend as it's being put in. So I'm going to manipulate pressure. So that's now fixed in position, and this one's a very simple one. If you're a beginner, it's a perfect pen to start with, because your next thing you do is simply a bit of pressure like that and it's done. It's a finished pen. Alright, lovely bit of material there, and then to make the mechanism work, it's a simple twist.
Quick question, can you use your tailstock to assemble your pens?
You can use your tailstock. Another good thing is, if you own a pillar drill, that's another great way of putting together. You can use your bench vise, another good way. Yeah, many things. Next pen, the Americana. Now this pen's been with us as a kit probably for the past 25 years. We've been doing this pen. It's just one of those kits that's relatively easy as a two-part pen, but it's a nice pen to use. It's got that nice weight. It's not too slimline, but on the other hand, it's not too chunky. It's quite an elegant looking pen. One of my favourites is the Americana or the European. The European's a similar pen to this, but with a dome top instead of the black cap. So again, we've got several parts to the kit. I'm just going to unscrew the mechanism from that little top hat thing. Take all these bits out of their packets. Not the best place for me to be doing this over a bundle of shavings, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. Okay, right, let's start. I'll start at the nib. Right, so that little collar goes over there. We then press that one on. Now these assembly presses, there's a little hole in here. You can locate that onto. I think we might need to go a little bit closer. Oh no, yeah, just a little bit closer. There we go. So that's that first bit on. Next thing, we can add our thread. We'll do the same thing here. Push that on nice and firmly. There we are. Then your refill can go in. And a mechanism then can screw over the top of that. Alright, so that's the bottom of the pen. Again, we need to push the actual cap on. And then we can fit the whole thing together. So, little decorative ring. A little bit of welly, and again we've got a rather glittery, a nice little Americana pen with that twist action on the actual refill. So there's your polyester and acrylic pens. We match, we'll bring up the other two, the timber. So remember from last Thursday we had the Cocobolo there. And then we have that lovely bit of dyed maple. So 4 nice pens in less than an hour and a half. I would have thought you put that together. And these two are good starter pens. Like I say, you got your single piece, your double piece. But as a double piece pen, probably starting with an Americana or European is the best way to go, because they're not too thin. Here you get some of the slimlines can be so thin that polyester or acrylic just won't work on them. And we had a question on Thursday about how do you disguise the barrel. Don't turn them that thin. The paler acrylics and polyesters don't turn too thin. They won't. You'll be able to see through them in the end. So there we are. So there's our pen making. Now we'll hold that one there just for a minute. Craig's just going to pan back. Like I said, I think it's important we do a pen part 3. We're going to go through the trickier materials again, so the polyester with coffee beans in, and we're going to pick on a fountain pen, something that's we have to add a couple more bits of difficulty into, so when you're going on to a couple more stages, and maybe one of the fat chunkier pens, because I know there's been a question about that. On Thursday this week we're going to be doing our fishing lures and floats, so I hope you're back to see that. That's going to be the same time as usual, 4 o'clock in my workshop. And then next week, don't forget, we're going to look at some chucks and centres. So we've got a busy few days coming up. Now, I know there's a busy few days of prep to do as well. So I hope you'd enjoy that, guys. From me and Craig, we'll see you again on Thursday, or at least I will see you on Thursday anyway. I hope you enjoy that. Until then, see you at 4 o'clock, same time, same place. My workshop. Bye bye.